I woke up this morning to 29 missed calls from an Illinois number. My coffee went completely cold in my hand because deep down, before I even pressed play on a single voicemail, I already knew exactly who it was. Some memories don't fade with time. They hide in the dark corners of your life, waiting for one ordinary morning to drag you straight back to hell. For me, it only took one flashing screen, and suddenly I was 12 years old again, standing completely alone inside Chicago's Union Station, watching the only people who were supposed to protect me turn my worst fear into their private entertainment. Growing up in Willow Creek, Illinois, our family looked perfect on the outside. My parents owned a small but successful chain of home goods stores. On weekends, my father grilled in the backyard while my mother waved to neighbors across the fence. To everyone in town, we were the ideal middle-class American family, hardworking, respectable, the kind people pointed to when they wanted to talk about good values. But inside our house, love was always tied to performance. Safety depended on whether my mother was bored enough to invent another lesson. That was her favorite word. If I cried, I was too sensitive. If I asked for help, I was helpless. If I forgot something, I needed to learn responsibility. She could turn any normal childhood mistake into a reason to humiliate me, and my father always backed her up with a grin, like cruelty was their favorite team sport. When I was 8, I asked for a new pair of sneakers at the mall because my old ones were falling apart. My mother called me spoiled, marched me to a bench near the food court, and left me there alone for almost 3 hours. I sat staring at the pretzel stand, trying not to cry, while they bet on whether I would still be sitting in the same spot when they returned. When they finally came back, my father laughed and asked if he owed her $20. At 10, I cried after boys mocked me at a football game. Instead of comforting me, they drove to the far side of the parking lot, told me to get out, and left me there after sunset. They said tears made people weak. My father bet I would try to hitch a ride or beg strangers for help. They came back nearly an hour later with fast food for themselves and no apology for me. Everything became a test. Everything became a joke at my expense. They called it building character and preparing me for the real world. But what they were really building was fear, hypervigilance, and silence. The only place I felt safe was on paper. I drew constantly: bedrooms with locked doors, train windows full of light, women standing on mountaintops with no one behind them. I was trying to draw my way out of my own life. What pushed everything over the edge was something small. I got a B+ in art, the one subject that made me feel alive. My mother held the report card like it was proof of moral failure. That night, I heard them in the kitchen, voices low and amused. My mother said I needed a lesson I would never forget. My father said he would bet money on that. The next morning, they acted cheerful. Pancakes, orange juice, a family day trip to Chicago. For one stupid second, I thought maybe they were trying to make things right. The whole drive felt wrong. My father kept the radio loud. My mother kept asking questions she knew would make me nervous. Did I think I was smart? Did I think life would care if I was scared? By the time we reached Union Station, my stomach was in knots. They parked near the station and told me to wait by a huge pillar while they moved the car and grabbed lunch. 15, maybe 20 minutes, they said. I asked if I could go with them. My father laughed loudly and said I was 12, not 2. My mother told me not to embarrass her in public. I stayed by that pillar. 15 minutes passed. Then 30. Then 45. An hour. An hour and a half. My hands started shaking. I had only $9 in my pocket. No phone. No address. No idea how the trains worked. Every announcement made my heart jump. Every woman with dark hair made me turn my head. Then I saw it, our car gliding slowly past the front windows. My whole body flooded with relief. I ran toward the glass, waving both arms. My father was driving. My mother was in the passenger seat. Both of them were looking right at me. My father smiled first. Not the smile of a parent who found their lost child. It was the smile of someone watching a punchline land perfectly. My mother rolled down the window and yelled over the traffic, "I bet $50 you cannot even find your way home." Then she laughed. My father laughed with her. He gave a little thumbs up like they were congratulating themselves for being so clever. Then the car moved on and disappeared into traffic. That was the moment the world changed shape for me. My fear wasn't a side effect of what they were doing. It was the entire point. I stood there frozen until a stranger brushed past me. I ran back inside the station because I didn't know what else to do. I wandered for hours, crying off and on, wiping my face because I was still ashamed to be seen upset. They had trained that into me too. I had $9. I stayed away from police because they taught me authority figures would only make it worse. I stayed away from strangers because asking for help was weakness. The person who finally noticed me was a station employee named Maria. She was in her 50s with tired eyes and a calm voice. She had seen me pacing back and forth. She asked if I was lost. I lied at first and said I was waiting for my parents. Then she asked if I had eaten. That simple question broke me. I told her they left me. I told her they drove past and laughed. I told her my mother had bet money on whether I could find my way home. Maria didn't tell me to calm down or call me dramatic. She crouched down and said, "You are safe right now and I am going to help you." Security was called. Transit police arrived. They checked the cameras and confirmed the car had slowed down and left again. When they finally reached my parents by phone, I heard the officer say, "No, ma'am." Leaving a 12-year-old in a major transit station is not a lesson in independence. It is child abandonment. By evening, I was sitting with a social worker. Because my parents refused to come back immediately and kept insisting it was just parenting, I couldn't simply be sent home. There would be an emergency placement until family court reviewed the case. That night, I met Mark and Laura Bennett. They were not perfect, but they were kind in a way that felt almost supernatural to me. He was a photographer. She was a preschool teacher. Their house was warm and lived in. Laura asked if I wanted spaghetti or soup. Mark asked if I preferred the hall light on or off. Nobody mocked me when I cried at the dinner table. Nobody made fun of my fear. The days that followed were a blur of social workers, therapy, and court. My parents showed up dressed respectably, acting calm and slightly amused that anyone was taking this so seriously. They admitted leaving me at the station, but insisted it was controlled and educational. My mother said they were building resilience. My father said American children had become too soft. The court-appointed therapist's report described a clear pattern of emotional abuse, humiliation, neglect, and escalating endangerment. When the judge asked if I wanted to return home under monitoring, I said no so quickly it shocked even me. In the end, my parents were given a choice: commit to a 2-year reunification program with parenting classes and therapy, or voluntarily surrender their parental rights. They chose to surrender. They gave me up rather than admit they were wrong. That truth stayed with me longer than anything else. They didn't lose me because the system took me. They handed me over to protect their pride. The Bennetts became my real family. They never rushed me. They knocked before entering my room. They remembered what triggered me. They gave me space and steady love without demanding gratitude. Art became my language. I poured everything into it and eventually became a graphic designer in Denver. I built a beautiful life, a loving husband, a rescue dog, Sunday calls with Mark and Laura, mornings that felt peaceful instead of tense. I blocked every way my biological parents could reach me. Most days I could go weeks without thinking about Jennifer Caldwell at all. Then came the 29 missed calls. It was my younger sister Hannah. Our mother had late-stage cancer. Our father had suffered a stroke. The stores were gone, sold, or closed after the old story resurfaced in a local Facebook group. A relative posted about the train station incident. Old neighbors started talking. A retired court clerk and a former employee added details. The perfect image my parents had spent decades curating collapsed overnight. Hannah had recently read the court records after becoming a mother herself. She cut contact too. She called me because she wanted me to hear the truth from someone who wasn't lying. They wanted me to come back. Not because they had changed, but because they were terrified of dying alone with nothing left. I flew to Chicago and drove to the hospital. The room smelled of disinfectant and fear. My parents looked smaller, older, broken by illness and public disgrace. My mother started crying, the dramatic kind of cry meant to pull focus. She called me by my old name. I corrected her once, Sophia. My father said they had made mistakes. I told them no. A mistake is missing an exit. What they did was deliberate. They turned my fear into entertainment. They bet on my panic. I looked at them and said the words I had carried since I was 12. You bet on whether I could find my way home. I did. I just didn't come back to yours. I told them I would not pay their bills, manage their care, or restore contact. My family was in Colorado with the people who had actually earned that word. Then I stood up and walked out. In the parking lot, my hands were shaking, not from regret, but from release. On the flight home, I thought about the little girl who once stood in that station believing abandonment meant she was unworthy of love. She was wrong. She was only unwanted by two broken people who mistook cruelty for strength. If there is any lesson in what happened to me, it is this. Abuse does not become discipline just because a parent uses cleaner words for it. Humiliation does not build character. Fear does not make children stronger, it only makes them older before their time. Real wealth is not the perfect house or successful business on the outside. Real wealth is kindness, humility, and the courage to admit when you are wrong. The family you are born into can shape your wounds, but it does not get to define your future. Walking away from people who hurt you, even blood, is not bitterness. Sometimes it is the healthiest, most loving thing you will ever do for yourself. You deserved better. And you can still build it. If this story touched you, drop a comment below. Have you ever had to go no contact with family? What was the moment that finally made you choose your peace? Like if you believe real love doesn't test you with fear. Subscribe for more raw, honest survivor stories. Thank you for listening.